Okay, so this video is going to be about the underrepresented minority status in the U.S. law school process. Now, the URM status is something that's sort of, actually, I'm not sure if it's unique to only U.S. law schools. I assume that it is. Maybe it's not someplace. If you have a URM status outside of the United States, please give me that information so I know. That would be something that I'm really interested in, that I have never really gotten the desire to Google and search for myself. So if where you're living you have that URM status in legal or law school recruitment, please let me know. URM status in the US is basically identifying yourself as a underrepresented minority in law school. Now, about in the U.S., about 135,000, give or take, students are non-minority students. Um, the three major minority groups, you have people, blacks, Asians, Hispanics. Those three major minority groups make up about 30,000, 35,000 of the students in law school. And they make, obviously that's a small chunk compared to the majority of students in law school. So in an effort to sort of boost those numbers, oh, and just to give you a really quick heads up on those numbers, um, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, the three largest minority groups, have about round about the same amount of students in law school. So you might have 10,000 African American students, give or take, 10,000 Hispanic students, and 10,000 Asian students. And it's there are differences in the sense of how many of one group of people are in law school in comparison to their population percentage or something like that. There are differences in that, but the number, the actual whole number, is round about the same, give or take a few, several hundred students here and there. So you have round about the same amount of minority students of the three major minority groups in law school, whereas non-minority students make up about 135,000, which is, way more than double the total of those three major minority groups. So that's to kind of give you an idea of why students, well, law schools are interested in the underrepresented minority status being a tool to bring diversity into the classroom on a larger scale. Obviously, you have different places where different groups of people, minority groups, are more prevalent, than others. For example, you have places where you have a large Asian population, places like New York, Massachusetts, California, you know, places where you have a large Hispanic population, places like Texas, Florida, let me think what else, Minnesota, just to name a few, and then other places where you have large black population, places like Georgia and places like Alabama, you know, and places, just in the north, just different places where you'll find a large African American black population. So everyone has their areas where they're more prevalent than other minority groups, but in no place do you really see any minority group being the majority, in that state as a whole, because there just aren't that many minorities living in the U.S. I mean, there's a large amount if you want to talk about percentage, but non-minority make up about 77 or 78% of, maybe roundabout, give or take. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I know it's roundabout 77, 78% of the U.S. total population anyway. So it's a huge amount, and law school is no different. There's a huge gap. So to kind of I guess, foster more diverse classroom, because there's this idea that, if you have lawyers who are more culturally sensitive, lawyers who have been in diverse environments, those are lawyers who will proceed to, I guess, perform better as lawyers in their careers. So to kind of give the students an opportunity to engage or interact with different people from different places and different culture and heritage and whatnot, lawyers, well, law schools want to, I guess, introduce as many, well, not as many. I don't want to say their goal is to stuff as many minorities into the classroom as possible, because it's not really, that's not really the goal. But the idea is to create a sort of more diverse classroom, like I said earlier. So to do that, one thing they've done is they've given sort of a superficial boost to minority students who are applying to law schools. Obviously, this boost, not many people understand this boost, and I, for one, don't understand this boost with 100% accuracy. I doubt, because each school has a different expectation of that boost and the strength of that boost and the type of minority student they're looking for. I mean, for example, in a place like Florida that I mentioned earlier that has a lot of Hispanic students, it's not to say that they're not looking for Hispanic students, but there's not a dire need to make sure that they get more and more Hispanic students in their classroom, as it would be in a place like let's say Georgia. Maybe there'd be a push to get more Hispanic students into the Georgia schools, where you don't see that large of a population of Hispanics in comparison to other minority groups, and vice versa. Maybe there's more of a push to get Asian students into Florida schools, where you don't have that large Asian population in comparison to other minority groups. So it all depends, depending on which minority group you come from. You should be looking at the schools that you're not largely represented at already. And then that would be, if you're looking for a really strong boost, I think that's where you should really be aiming for. But needless to say, it's just a guideline. It's not really a set rule. The URM boost, I mean, you can look up statistics for different people who have similar numbers and see whether those people were accepted or denied. I mean, you have some application. The application process for a lot of schools is basically holistic, and race is considered, but race is considered in the sense that they're looking for a more diverse classroom, and for that reason, I guess race is considered in the application process. But there's no law that says you have to have X amount of minority students, here, or X amount of minority students there. It's just each school sort of handles it their own way. Obviously, this is not taken well, by every group. For example, you will have non-minority students who make up a large population of the law school student population, saying, okay, if I have these numbers and someone who's a minority has these numbers as well, and that minority is accepted, why is that? It could be an issue of race. If you have a non-minority student who has slightly better numbers and a minority student is accepted in front of him or her, you'd say, okay, race had something to do with that. However, the idea is that these applicants are viewed on a holistic basis. Race might play a part in it. Race, maybe usually does, with the sense of the URM boost. But that's what makes it, for me, so irritating, because you sort of there's no set guideline. There's guidelines, but there's no set rules. Pardon me, no set rules, and because there's no set rules, we can't really say for sure this just happened, because of race. We we don't really know. I mean, we can only make assumptions, and we can say, okay, we don't know what that person has on their resume. We don't know what that person has, as far as their personal statements are concerned, because the law school would do that. So it's hard to really make an accurate, you know, accurate comparison of two candidates when the application process is holistic. So there's no way you can really tell whether or not a candidate's getting favorable treatment simply because of his race. I mean, you can look for a correlation and you can point to it and say, okay, these two, but the correlation doesn't, imply causation. So I think for that's in that sense, URM status is a good thing and it's a bad thing all at once, because you have the opportunity for students who are just such a small part of the U.S. population to attend law school and to enter a profession that is a very challenging and I guess it could be a lucrative profession if the market turns around, or if things go right for that person. And there's so much competition to get into the best schools that students will take any advantage they can get, and the URM boost is just another advantage that students consider when they're applying to law school. And I guess what I would tell minority students is pick your school wisely, pick your school based on where you plan to work, or where you wouldn't mind working after graduation, and consider whether or not that's a school that your minority group is highly represented in. Because if it's not, maybe that's a chance for you to get a boost, and perhaps that'll help with maybe a low LSAT score. I don't know if it helps with GPA. Maybe it helps with GPA, kind of bridges that gap. But for each person, I think you have to take it by a case-by-case basis. And for non-minority students, I think what you have to do is you kind of have to accept the things the way they are, and then there's still an opportunity for you to get into a law school. Very good law school. It's not like there are enough minorities to keep you out of a very good law school. And then once you get into a law school, I guess you can be at peace knowing that whatever law school you attend, with the exception of a very few historically black universities, you're going to be the majority student in that law school. So it's going to be a more comfortable process for you if you're more comfortable around people who have come from the same cultural background as you. So that's something, I guess you can call it a sort of a trade-off. And I guess that's all I wanted to talk about when we're talking about the URM boost. It's 13 minutes in, so I'll end the video here, and good luck, more to come.